Hello and very warm welcome to Peace Village. We'll be starting soon, and in the meanwhile, we'll enjoy the live music. One request for all of you to please come forward if that's okay with you. So we have a good view of, of all of you. So if that's okay, please. Thank you.
Hello everybody, welcome. We're going to need some help with this song. Who feels like singing? One, two, three. No, we need more than that. We need more than that. There's only one word you have to sing. Om. Do you think you can manage that? Om. Okay. So I will bring you in. We're going to sing Om 4 times. And if you really like it, you can continue throughout the whole song. How's that? Challenging? You didn't know you had to work, right? Thought you could just come and listen. Okay. So I'll start you off. And keep it going. I am light, I am light. 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 I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. 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 I am not mistakes that I have made, or any of the things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin that's on the outside. I am not my race. I am not my age. The soul inside. It's all light. It's all light. It's all light. It's all light. Ready for the ohms? Om. 3 more. Om.
Thank you for that beautiful symphony. That was Chris Farrell, Marcella Chavarria on the violin, and Brother Paul singing. So before I welcome you, just a little bit about the musicians who just gave us such a beautiful start to this evening. So Chris Farrell is an old friend of the Brahma Kumaris who has worked on Living Values project with the Brahma Kumaris at the United Nations and has also visited our headquarters in Mount Abu in India in 1986. And he has been visiting Peace Village ever since its inception in 1999. Chris is a classically influenced, modern-minded composer and pianist who writes and performs music with a focus on healing and wellness. He believes that we can help each other find personal harmony and create a more peaceful world through the restorative power of music. So a big hand for Chris Farrell. And the other musician who you just heard was Marcella. Marcella Chavarria was born in Costa Rica, and she has been studying violin since the age of 6. She lives in Costa Rica currently, and she has been a student and teacher of the Brahma Kumaris for more than 20 years. She has had the fortune to play live meditations, talks and live retreats in India, different parts of America, Latin America, and Europe. And she has shared the stage with various musicians and artists from different corners of the world. So another big round of applause for Marcella. And the Brother Paul, who sang such a beautiful song, I Am Light, and also inspired all of you to say Om. So Paul was born in the United Kingdom. He came to America in 2000, and currently Paul is responsible for maintaining all of the grounds, the 300 acres of Peace Village, and he also maintains the trails so that we can have a good hike around here. And he's been singing since he was a boy in school. So thank you, Brother Paul, for such a beautiful melody. I'm going to be your host for this evening. My name is Kanupriya, and I've been a resident in Peace Village for the last 4 years. So very warm welcome. Anybody here who has been to Peace Village? This is the first time that you're visiting Peace Village. Anybody can raise your hands? Okay, so extra special warm welcome to all of you. And today we have a very special guest with us all the way from Australia with a very unique, different topic called the pure heart. Now, whenever we talk about the heart or think about the heart, I don't think purity ever comes in the mind, but we will explore with Brother Charlie how the innocence and the sweetness of the heart can be brought forward with our right understanding of what this heart is. And he is a living example of what a pure heart is, so it's very easy. In his interactions with you, you will find that he can really embody what he's talking. So a little bit about, we call him Brother Charlie. He is So Brother Charlie is the national coordinator of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, and he's the chairman of its board of directors. He's based in Sydney, and he regularly visits the 40+ Brahma Kumaris venues around Australia for speaking engagements and retreats. He's also an active member of the coordinating team for the Asia Pacific region of the Brahma Kumaris and Brahma Kumaris International Coordinating Group. He's been responsible for many international projects and administrative direction of the organization's global network of centers. Charlie grew up in Melbourne and was studying architecture at Melbourne University when he felt an inner urge to travel to follow his interest in culture and explore various spiritual philosophies. For more than 3 years, he traveled through Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. And during this time, he lived in many communities, including Buddhists, Christian, Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, and Taoist, which led him to probe more deeply into questions about life and death and transformation. So we have this wealth of knowledge and experience from Brother Charlie. And then in 1975, when he was 20-something years old, he came across the Brahma Kumaris in London, where he learned meditation. And it's been 50 years since he has been with the Brahma Kumaris, and he'll be sharing some of his insights with us today. So welcome, Brother Charlie. I would invite you to please take the stage. And this evening, we expect you to please come up with your questions. There will be time for the talk with Brother Charlie. There will be some time for meditation commentary. He will take us into a deeper experience and also give us time to answer your questions. And then once all of that is done, we have a very special ceremony planned towards the end of this evening, which is called Rakhi, Raksha Bandhan. We'll let you know a little bit more about it as the time comes by. So stay on for the whole evening. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. It's really a delight to be here this afternoon and be in this lovely atmosphere. And thank you so much, Sister Kanapriya, for your introduction. What I'd really like to do today is just speak briefly about this subject, and then we'll have some meditation. And then Judy, who's an old and dear friend, is going to come and we'll have a little bit of chat before we open it up. I love to sit in such gatherings as this because I think all of us come here because we're all on the inner journey. And life is a fascinating thing. Because on one hand, we all have a story about what we do, where we're from. And when we meet each other, we often describe the external story of my life, where I've been living, what I've been doing. But at each moment of life, all of us are on this internal journey, this sort of constant dialogue with myself, learning about who I am. And there's so many ways to describe this inner journey or this spiritual journey. But one way I really love is to re-find the intrinsic me. And perhaps I can describe that as my pure heart. You know, that sweet place in yourself where you feel so comfortable and you're really living the life you feel you can. And sometimes for me, I think the subtext of human life is the search for true love. We may not verbalize that, but if you ask most people what is the most important thing in life, they will say relationships, family, love, belonging, and so on. And if you look at your life, most of us, we invest our heart, we give everything in our lives to our families, to our friends, and so on. But life is very challenging. And I often feel there's a huge dilemma that with all that passion we put into our family and our relationships, none of them are permanent. They will always change. And the result of this is it's left us with, I would say, a heart full of spiritual disease in a sense. a heart full of so much pain and hurt because of loss of love, loss of belonging, loss of care, loss of connection. And so we yearn for that pure heart, and yet I'd say the state of the heart of the world is not so healthy at the moment. And sometimes I have the thought that there's 3 sources of love in life. The first is from me. Do you get much love from yourself? Everyone's smiling, but I can't hear anything. I don't think so. You know, often I feel, look at our dysfunctional world. Where does it begin? Because the first relationship in life is so unhealthy, the way we treat ourselves. That flows into our health, flows into our families, flows into our society and institutions, hence the world we have. So not much love coming for me, from me. Love, the second is really love from God. And I think many people have such a deep faith in God. But I'm not sure we really feel that sort of, that deep, intimate love and belonging in that relationship. So my one source of love is my family and my friends. And if that's good, I'm okay. But if there's a loss or a conflict, sometimes it's like my whole life goes into upheaval. And this is why sometimes I feel, what is spirituality? What is spirituality? Spirituality is first developing a loving relationship with myself as a soul. It's like going right back to the essence to rebuild my heart and make it healthy. And secondly, a loving relationship with God, the Supreme Soul. And it seems to me that when we sow those 2 seeds of truth, I start to re-emerge that pure heart, which is so essential to a sense of self-value and self-respect and a quality of life. And yet look at the reality of life today. And I often mention that I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, I just teach a bit of meditation. But I've had the privilege to travel a lot and talk to so many people. And my experience has scratched the surface of the majority of the human race. And sitting in the heart, if I can use the word, it's a bit strong, there's just so much heart disease there. There's sometimes heavy hearts, hearts that have made mistakes or things have gone wrong. And so the heart is full of, guilt and shame. So the heart feels really heavy and doesn't feel worthy to be loved. Or sometimes there's closed hearts, hearts that have trusted. You know that thing in life where you fully put your trust in a relationship, but that trust is broken. And sometimes as a result, I just close up because I fear that if I open up again, I'll lose that trust once more. Sometimes there's broken hearts, those hearts that absolutely had loving relationships, but because of death or conflict or change, that love goes and the heart feels broken. Or sometimes empty hearts, and these are hearts that I think in the culture of the contemporary world, I look to you to provide me with what I need. So often I have these incredibly high expectations and no one can really fulfill my expectations. So I feel permanently disappointed. No one can really fill my empty heart. We all know the beauty of life is to give love, and the law of life says the more you give, the more you receive. If you sit waiting for love, I think you wait most of your life. And sometimes even I would say angry hearts, hearts that just feel full of bitterness and resentment, feel that life has dealt me a hard card. And so the heart today is sometimes full of it carries so many stories and so many issues. And in a sense, I would say one of the ways of describing this spiritual journey is beginning to heal all this disease and re-emerge what is intrinsic and original to me, which is my pure heart. And you heard a little bit about my story at the beginning. I grew up in Melbourne, and right from a young age, I was a bit of a searcher. Who would describe themselves as a searcher here? Quite a few. And always looking, just to tell you, give you an idea of what I was like. My nickname at school, even when I was 11 or 12, was Swami. My friends called me Swami. Because I was always interested in philosophy and those sorts of things. And, you know, I was really looking, but I didn't really know. You know that funny thing, you're not really sure what you're looking for, but you feel there's something missing. There can be more substance or meaning to life. So that search took me, as you heard, all over the world, which was an incredible experience. But when I was just 12 years old, my parents sent me to confirmation class, which is sort of, I mean, in the Christian religion, it's sort of an entry into the church, even though mum and dad weren't very religious. You know how life is, get the kids there. But I went along, and I was going there every Sunday for quite a long time. And mum and dad said to me, "Okay, what have you learned?" And I announced as a very wise 12-year-old, "I think I'm an atheist." And they said, "Why?" I said, "I just can't relate to God as being this punishing, authoritarian, judgmental being." And, you know, as an immature mind, I just couldn't relate to that. And yet the search was still there. The search was there, and that took me at the age of 20 all around the world. And that was my education, actually, living in all these religious communities. And as I did, I began to call myself an agnostic. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there is a God or who God might be. But I settled in London. I was working in London, and the search was really strong. I was visiting all sorts of groups, religious groups, spiritual groups, psychological groups, philosophical groups. You know, that to find sort of what's the meaning of this game we're all involved in. I think you all know the story. And it was there that actually I came across the Brahma Kumaris. And I went to the meditation center, and there was two pieces of information that really, I think, helped me start to reconnect with a pure heart. The first was the concept of the self. And it's something I notice virtually everyone has been here before, you know, that the eternal self, I find it absolutely fascinating till this day to know who I am. You know, 80% of the world believes there's something more than a body. But spirituality is unpacking that truth, so I feel it. I know I'm a soul. The soul is a point. The soul is non-physical, eternal, immortal. This is the self. And I have no label. I love that. No label of gender, colour, religion, no label on the true me. The label just comes on the temporary me. And as I build up this picture of the self, it really felt very comfortable to me. But then there was one piece of information which really opened my mind, that I, the soul, have been on a long, long journey. Do you feel that? Do you feel you've sort of been, you sit here in the present, but you feel you've been on a long, long journey over a long, long time? And what they offered was that the original blueprint in the subconscious, the soul is really an overname for the mind, which is, I often refer to it as a screen that receives the data from the sense organs. So what I see here throws up on the screen of my mind. The intellect, which is the faculty of understanding, is assessing all the data. And this intellect is just the most extraordinary piece of my inner anatomy, because it's constantly assessing the data coming from life and how to respond. When I make a decision, I do an action, I say something, or maybe I decide not to speak, but whatever I do leaves a recording in my database. So who am I? I am actually the sum total of all my past actions and experiences. And the original past was pure. Actually, the original past was a pure heart, and this is why we search from it. The blueprint is within me. But over time, as I, this subtle being that always lives, that takes on a body, leaves a body, takes on another body, leaves a body, as I forgot myself and began to think I was a body, then this is when all the heart disease began. And that original pure heart was lost. And then all these other hearts that all of us experience in different ways, you know, the closed heart and the broken heart and the empty heart, all of that becomes very powerful in my inner system, to the point that relationships are so complex and complicated today for most of us. And so the idea that the pure heart within me, that made a lot of sense to me. It's sitting there. But the real issue is how to access it and feel it. And the second piece of information I was offered was an introduction to God. And, you know, I'd been an atheist, I'd been an agnostic, and I was always a bit sensitive to people telling me about God, to be honest. But what came was something that fitted in comfortably, that just as I am a soul, but I take a body and leave a body, God is a soul, but never takes or leaves a body. God is a soul that retains truth, like a pure soul, never takes birth and rebirth. So that soul doesn't really know happiness and sorrow like me, but is a real living soul like me. Thinks and experiences like me, not a concept, a belief, an intellectual idea, but a soul, but a pure soul. And the power of that soul is that that soul never changes. All of us change. All of us do actions and reap the fruit of our actions. So we know happiness and we know sorrow. And once again, I think this was sort of interesting for me, so I was playing with some of these sort of ideas. And I can remember one day I was 22 at the time, and I was walking home in London, and I was thinking about I, the permanent self, the soul, and this relationship, the only relationship that's really permanent. Not just a belief in some concept, but a real living relationship with another soul, but not through my sense organs, through my thoughts and feelings. And I had an experience, and I can only describe it as like there was a pause button on time. You know how sometimes time seems to stop, and I had this extraordinary feeling of connection and a purity of love that I'd never tasted before. And I had a happy family life. My family was good. I didn't feel there was a lack of love, but the quality of this love. And the experience was that this love went into the core of my being. And it opened my heart. That's the only way I can say it. Something opened in me that had been sort of shut down. And there was almost instantly, it changed my relationship with myself. Because to me, in all my sharings with people, as I said, I'm not a trained counselor or psychologist, whatever, the biggest battle in life is to feel consistently comfortable with who I am, have a consistent sense of my own value. Not dancing to the tune of this one likes me, this one doesn't like me, I'm successful here, I'm a failure here. That we get our self-respect in this world from everything external. So it's so fragile. But this love sort of opened me to a sense of myself that was so solid. It was such an incredible feeling. And I'd say that it really opened my heart. but I wouldn't say it really connected me with my pure heart. And then I was taught that offered, really, this thing, because it's like an offering, that the spiritual journey is really practicing to experience who I am as a soul. So I move from a state of mind where almost every millisecond my identity had been colouring my relationships, my life, that I'm a temporary body, I'm Charlie, I'm a male, I'm this, I'm that. And I started to sow this different identity within myself. And that really, had a huge effect on me, a positive effect. But then I began to practice remembering the Supreme Soul. So I'm on this journey of change, of shifting from an old consciousness based on my body to a new consciousness based on the soul. And this relationship, this one permanent relationship. And what I really loved was that the Brahma Kumaris told me to, suggested, I keep saying, to remember God. Because what I'm finding, everywhere I go, people really want to meditate. I think we all know somehow we've become a bit spiritually bankrupt. So I really, really want to connect with truth, know peace, know these things. But I sit and meditate and my mind goes absolutely everywhere except meditation often. And I really practice. And then deep down, I feel a bit hopeless. Deep down, I want to, I yearn to, but I just can't do it. It's too hard. And so I sort of feel a bit of a failure at meditation. And yet, remembering is the most natural thing of human consciousness. Because at every millisecond, you're remembering. Even whilst you're sitting here, your intellect's traveling home, remembering a child. Tomorrow, remembering something I have to do. Suddenly a memory kicks in. It's constantly traveling and plugging in. And what I really observed was that there's 3 steps of remembrance. You connect. Whatever you connect with will influence you. And thirdly, whatever influences you is how you feel. And so when I connect with God, I'm influenced by the qualities of that soul, that relationship, which is full, naturally full of peace, purity, power, love, happiness. So it's like when I collect, I live stream that energy back into the sacred space of my mind. That feeling is the sweetest feeling in my experience. But in 1 second, I can connect to a relationship where I'm in conflict. It's not going well. The instant I connect, I'm influenced by that conflict, and then the mind will be turbulent. And I began to see that whatever I plug into influences me, and that's how I feel. And what I began to notice is the more I plugged into the remembrance of the Supreme Soul, the lover of the soul, whatever you, sometimes here we say Baba, like a father, a parent. I really felt like my pure heart begin to emerge, and a whole range of feelings inside that really connected to me, to my self-value. My observation of myself is that if, even in thought, I have negative thoughts about a person, deep down, how do you feel about yourself? You don't feel so good about who you are. But the more I connected to that being, the more I live stream those feelings in my mind, then the more out of that place, my behavior was more elevated. It's I felt more comfortable with who I was as a person in that way. And yet, the intellect will plug into the divine and then in a second plug into an old story. And so I began to see, and that's when, the diseased heart comes up again, and then I plug in again to God, and the pure heart starts to emerge. And in a way, this is the spiritual journey of really plugging in, connecting, remembering who I am and the Supreme, and almost automatically that pure heart begins to emerge. And that pure heart is truly loving. And sometimes I see that as that love is holding the value of someone in my attitude. That is one of the most powerful things. I often feel the most powerful thing of any leader is to hold the value of those I'm responsible for in my attitude. And the leader of the Brahma Kumaris for 38 years was a woman who valued absolutely everyone, Daddy Prakashmani. She just had loving feelings for everyone, and her power just almost, I don't know, emerged the purity in the hearts of many. Her purity in her heart emerged those elevated feelings in so many. But what I really love about a pure heart is the intent, because the whole power of any action is the intent or the motive that is the seed of the action. And in a way, why do we sit and remember God? Because when I really feel connected, my quality of my thoughts is very elevated. So when I come into action and relationship, very elevated intent is the seed of those actions and relationships. The cleaner the intent, I would say, the more successful the action. And so it's like that pure heart begins to become strong. The innocence of a pure heart. How attractive is innocence? Why do we love little children? You know, one friend was telling me once that he was in a country where it gets freezing cold in winter and was on the underground in the underground railway. And, you know, it was winter and all the faces in that train were long and drawn and, you know, they're not looking very happy. And he said that he was just observing these long drawn, tired, sort of unhappy looking faces. And a young woman hopped on with a little newborn child, baby. And he said it was amazing how just that innocence of that, what that baby represented, drew love. You know, and those faces, those tired faces, love appeared. So when I tap into my innocence, sometimes I feel a part of that pure heart is tapping into my own original innocence, and it's like I become lovable. I can actually learn how to love myself genuinely, not sort of hyper, not like in a hype way, I should, I must, and I chant this, I should love myself, you know, I am a good soul, but deep down, it's not really happening. So there's a pure heart loves. A pure heart is innocent. A pure heart has those highest intents. A pure heart is humble. And that is really something which is so powerful. And a pure heart forgives. And to me, you know, forgiveness is really a state of mind where, you know, I let go all those conditions of my mind, and I'm really loving all the conditions that this has happened, that's happened, and really I can let it go. Really, a pure heart is really powerful, but we find it when we reconnect with who I am and who I belong to. So let's have a few moments of meditation. And then, if I can just suggest, if you feel comfortable, to keep your eyes open and gently rest your vision on the image of God, the image of the divine, the image of the Supreme Soul behind. And I'm just going to offer a few thoughts. Let me sit quietly and with gentle determination follow the thoughts suggested, not just to listen but to feel them inside. Let me first reflect on my heart. How is my heart feeling now? The heart is the center of my life, and the state of my heart influences each and every part of my life. In the journey through time, as I forgot the true self, and I took on my temporary identity as myself. My heart began to change. Originally, my heart was pure, and even now it can be like that. But over time, I collected so much hurt, feelings of rejection, feelings of not belonging, feelings of not being good enough. And the pure heart merged. But to step back into this sweet place, which feels so comfortable, I need to experience who I am. Just feel yourself begin to let go the temporary identity of my body. Stepping back from identifying with what I do. Stepping back from all the labels that my body represents. Consciously step aside from the gender, the nationality, the color, and feel yourself sitting so lightly in the forehead. A minute star that has lived before this body and will continue afterwards. Feel the wonder of the true self, that I can never die. I always exist. journey back to my intrinsic self and a pure heart. And in this natural state, because soul consciousness is my natural state, I reconnect with the lover of the soul, the one relationship that's permanent. Visualize the form of the divine as a radiant jewel of light. Just hold this image in your mind, a real, living, pulsating being that's changeless and unlimited in peace and purity and love. Just let me remember. Rest your mind in this being. I don't have to force or pressure. But the more there's love, the mind will follow. And in this connection, I feel my true beauty that is innocent and benevolent and kind and loving. My pure heart. The more I practice, the stronger my pure heart becomes.
Thank you, Brother Charlie, to take us to that inner space of pure, innocent love and heart. I would now like to invite Sister Judy. Judy Rodgers is a resident of Peace Village, and most of you may have known her from before. She has a background in media and communications, and she'll be helping us with a conversation with Brother Charlie. So thank you, Sister Judy, for taking this on. Better.
Hello, friends. How are you? Most welcome. Do you know it's our anniversary year? 25 years. I know, very good. Not so easy to pull that off. And this is program number 2 in our anniversary series. Were some of you here last month with Sister Genti? Yes. And are you coming on September 7th to play with us? We're going to have lots of fun on the 7th, so please come back. And Swami, I want to follow up on a grounded way on some of your gorgeous thoughts. So, you talked about the pure heart, but sometimes we, as you said, we swing between negative feelings, or maybe not always negative, but sometimes sad or disappointed or whatever, and positive feelings. So what is the effect of that? Why does that matter? Maybe, what happens to us when we encounter something that really discourages us, say, or makes us disappointed versus something that goes to our pure heart? What's the effect?
I think in reality, it's this journey, isn't it? The inner journey, in the sense that we sometimes get a taste of that pure heart, which is that incredibly comfortable feeling in myself. That sweet feeling where you are who you are. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to be something, You're not always striving to be an image or whatever. You're comfortable in your own skin. But then what's helped me is that I carry my past story in my subconscious, so it's going to, what life does is trigger that story. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, you come in front of somebody, just a few words just triggers. Right. And so the sadness just kicks in and the old story. And this is the learning that just this, rather than keep feeding that old story, I've got to learn how to bounce back and keep feeding the pure heart. But
how to bounce back?
How to bounce back, that's it.
All right, how do we do that? It's not that easy, right? Bouncing back. So I just want to go to something that happens. So sometimes there's a person in our life who doesn't have a good vision for us. Do you know this feeling? No matter what you do, they just don't see you in a good way, right? And it doesn't even feel like we did anything. It's like they just don't see us with love. What do we do about that? If we don't feel we did anything, it's not like we treated them badly, they just don't look at us with love. So what do we do?
My feeling is that all of us will have those one or two people. No matter what I do, it is never good. But Judy, I feel it's nothing like the vision I have on myself. Mm. Because this is the real issue in life. Sometimes we will talk to friends, we are devastated because someone rejects me or doesn't like me.
Right.
But I don't think it's anything as powerful as the way I treat myself, how I reject myself, put myself down. Mm-hmm. And, this is the real story, because I feel the more that I shift this addiction to this negative vision on myself, which is, as I said during the talk, I believe why we have this mad, dysfunctional world. Because there's 8 billion souls in our world who have this vision, look down at themselves, and therefore if you don't really have a good vision on yourself, will you have good vision on other people? I don't think so. It's a repercussion.
Okay, so how do I fix that? So let's say that I don't have self-respect, that I don't feel very good about myself, what do I do about that? I mean, it's not like there's a switch in there. I'm just going to suddenly change that, right?
I had a talk with one old friend of mine about this, that you can go to the New Age bookshops now. There's 1 billion books on self-esteem, self-respect. But honestly, I believe the one thing that really genuinely begins to heal this addiction to this negative vision is love from God. This is the key to allow myself to be loved from God. But the issue there is that we have this powerful feeling of unworthiness, like I'm not really entitled.
Right.
And that's the learning, the inner learning that actually, because when I feel that love from God, I start to feel love for myself. And then I don't overreact to the people, because I realize if people reject me, why? Because they don't feel any love in their life either. That's they're in that state.
But here's my question. So, for me to feel love from God, don't I have to have self-love? I mean, isn't this a little bit of a catch-22? If I'm going to feel love from God, I have to love myself, and the way I love myself is I feel love from God, right? So how do I get out of that spin? Where do I find my way into that?
You know, someone once said to me, religion says, become pure and you can know God. And you know what people, you know, the sacrifice, even the self-flagellation people do.
Right.
But spirituality says, know God and you will become pure. And I think it's really, it's wisdom that this love will heal me. And when I learn to step aside from the addiction, I begin to see clearly of my own vision on myself as what's holding me back in life. This is the sort of, I often say that if I can wake up early in the morning and sit in front of God like a little child and begin to allow myself to be loved. And at first you may not feel it, but keep practicing. And once you start to taste that love, the whole of that healing process begins to happen.
Okay.
She doesn't look very convinced, does she?
Well, you know what I'm saying. I mean, he's saying just, allow yourself to be loved by God. Okay, fair enough. Here's the picture right there. That's God. And I mean, that's a picture of God, right? So I feel like what happens to us sometimes, Charlie, is when we quiet the mind down, what comes in are little messages of disappointment in the self, right? Or disappointment in my family or my spouse or my health diagnosis or whatever. I want to feel God's love, but I've got this other thing going on in here. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so what I'm trying to get clear on is what do I do so that I can clear the pathway in so that God's love can make it to me if I've got traffic going on, disappointment traffic, right? That's what I'm really wondering now.
Yeah, it's a normal state of mind today. But it's like I have the whole context that the original me is pure, is lovable, had self-respect. But the conditioned me is the one with this traffic of disappointment.
Right.
So I've got to persevere and really I would say that's my own personal experience, genuinely my own personal experience. The more I've practiced not this self-absorption in me, my life, how I feel, this just chronic self-absorption.
Yeah, right.
It's the culture of the contemporary world, but just step aside a bit and just open my mind to the love I've really looked for will heal me. It will absolutely heal me. Give it a try. It is possible.
Okay, what do you think?
She looks a bit more convinced, I think.
He insists there's a way to do this, so I'm going to have this faith. Okay. So I'm going to step aside from that negative traffic. I'm going to let God's love come in and heal me, and I'm going to feel happy. So I have another question here, and I want you to think what questions you have too. This is very subtle territory, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about thoughts and feelings and managing the things going on in the mind and the heart. Sometimes we don't even know what's going on in the heart, right? You have to really stop and look inside. And sometimes when you look inside, it's so unpleasant that you come running out screaming, but not after we receive God's love. Okay. So I know some of you in this audience, and I know that a good number of you are really open-hearted, that you make caring for others a big part of your life. And Charlie, sometimes the suffering of others really gets to us. I mean, it really, we're sad about what's happening, especially if that person is close to us, right? Especially if it's someone we know well. We can become quite sad and unable to actually do much but feel sad. So what do we do so that our pure heart actually remains pure and doesn't get affected by what's going on for others?
You know, I think what I've observed is that the more we depleted or became depleted of our inner resources, the ability to create peace in myself, love, the more I began to look outside for it. And unconsciously, the whole of the framework of my whole sort of mental setup is to absorb. Sometimes I sort of think of the inner self like a vacuum cleaner. You know, you're empty, so if you give me love, you give me respect, you give me cooperation, I absorb it. You insult me, you criticize, I take it all in. And then I project it all back on you. You're the one giving me suffering. We're in this cycle of sort of, you know, taking sorrow. And I think that really the more, all I can do, I feel the main way I can help the people I love is to first help myself. And I often think that, you know, when I become aware of the self and I connect with God, and you remember, you live stream that vibration into your mind. You know, I think all of us have had some experience of this where your whole mind feels so light, so sweet, so settled. And that vibe sustains you. You feel sustained by that feeling. Then your mind sustains the atmosphere and you begin to sustain the people you love around you by being who you are. Because I often think there's two forms of support, really. There's emotional support. And we all know we've all got family members who are absolutely struggling. We're struggling even. So you want to help. So we give them pep talks, we encourage them, and they get a bit better. And then the next day, back to square one.
Right.
And that constant process. But often, I think, firstly, being in your place of a true heart, you know, strengthening yourself and holding their value in your attitude. To me, that's because everyone has value, but everyone's lost the awareness of their value. But when, you know, when someone's visioning on you, they believe in you, they trust you, they value you, that's an incredible power.
Right.
That's an incredible gift to the people I love. Now, that's a subtle thing because I think our thoughts and our awareness is projected through our attitude, and it is a very influential thing. And this is why I feel the most powerful leaders are the people who hold the value of those they're leading in their attitude, or a parent who believes in a child no matter what, holds their value. That's probably the greatest gift of a parent. And because we can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and it's okay, but I don't know, when we're the example, then people learn from who we are more than what we say.
So you're saying it's not just about the pep talks.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if your mother tells you that you're good, you say, well, you're my mom, right? Of course you would say that. But you're saying actually hold the vision of them, not so much what you say. Is that right?
Well, yes, and you know Judy, like I know Judy well, and Judy was very close to Daddy Janky, who most of you know, and I think you would say that her vision on you had been a huge part of your journey forward, because she could, you know how sometimes you can see beyond the present, and you can sort of see the value, you can see the beauty, and when you invest in that part of a person through your attitude, they feel it.
Right.
That is the greatest gift in a relationship, I feel. And that's like a spiritual support
Right.
for others.
So I want to talk only to those whose parents are here with you. Parents, don't listen to this. So, and I see two of you who I spoke with last month. Do you know who I'm talking to? You do, don't you? So, do you feel that your parents absolutely believe in you no matter what? You do, don't you? Both of you? Yeah. And does that make you do better? Because you know they have faith in you, right? Okay, that's what Charlie's saying. David, is that true for you? Through thick and thin? It's true, isn't it? Even when you're hospitalized and you're fainting and all that. You know, there's something to be said for people's faith, right? Their faith in us, their belief in us.
And Judy, in a way, I'm sorry that I interrupt you.
I go.
That's the relationship with God. When I feel
Okay.
that vision on me.
That's nice, Charlie, that's nice.
But it's real, you know, it's
knew
not.
he'd eventually win this point, right?
It's hard work, but we're getting there.
Okay, so it's the same feeling that the parent who believes in you has for you, that God has for me as well. So if I feel my mother's or father's love and support, that exact thing is what it feels like to have God believe in me. Do you boys over there, do you know that feeling? Yeah, you do. So, does that mean less talking, more something else? Like David, do both your parents talk to you constantly asking if you were okay? A little bit. Less talk? We need less talk.
Not necessarily, but I think, as we know, the majority of relationship is through thoughts and feelings. That's the most influential part of relationship. And I remember once in Australia, I was working with a group of actors and someone came to talk to them and just was saying that when you connect, when you communicate with anyone, you communicate on 3 levels. One is what you say. The second is your face. You know how we read so much. The third is your vibrations. And, you know, 80 to 90% of the impact is nonverbal, your face and vibrations. So, and in human relationships, as we know, if we hear one message and feel another, what do you trust? You always trust your feelings. So that's really, in spirituality, when I understand this, that when I really learn the art of keeping benevolent thoughts and benevolent feelings and respect, the power of respect is huge in relationship. But it's true what you said. To generate respect, I need self-respect. But when I have those benevolent thoughts and feelings, it reaches people. People feel safe with me. People feel comfortable. Most of relationship is subtle. And that's why when you're on the spiritual journey and you're upgrading the quality of your consciousness, then it will influence my relationships positively.
So does it follow then that, so let me think how to put this. So it's easy for a parent to love a child, right? And it's easy for us to love certain kinds of people, but it's not always easy for us to love everyone. And I think what you have been circling around is that on this spiritual journey, your ambition is that you would always be generating those feelings for people, right? Whether you knew them or not even, right? Whether you had an instinctive feeling for them or not, you would love them anyway. I mean, that's what they say about the great spiritual figures, right? That they're always loving. So, and Charlie is always loving. So how would you know if he really liked you? You wouldn't, because he would just be beaming love and wouldn't matter. Of course he would love you anyway, right?
How do I respond to that? But I think what you touched on there, and that's something which I think is a really interesting part of this story, which often we feel uncomfortable about, that a part of regaining my spiritual authority is learning how to be uninfluenced. And the language sometimes we use is learning to be detached, which is a very unfortunate word in English because it's always interpreted as being aloof and disconnected and connect, all that sort of, we know. But actually, detachment is to be used today, even this morning, fully engaged, fully connected, loving, but I'm not absorbing because I'm not so needy. I'm not absorbing everything of life and projecting it back. So when you're detached, it increases your capacity to love.
So we're detached from, what you're implying here is we're detached from things that are in the temporary, or the world of matter, right? But we're attached, is that what you're suggesting? We're attached to the permanent thing?
No.
No?
No.
So we're going to try it again.
No, what I was really saying is that we, rather than absorbing from people, we learn how to be detached. So if someone loves me, of course I'll be loving. But if someone's a bit indifferent to me, rather than being really absorbing that, feeling really sensitive and overthinking and analysing and then getting a little bit hurt and talking to someone about it. So I just disturb my whole being.
Okay.
I just let it go, and it takes practice, there's no doubt. And I think, when I started, I used to be quite sensitive to how people saw me, because when we lack self-respect, I live my life through the eyes of other people. If you like me, I'm fine. But if you don't like me, I'm not fine at all.
Okay.
But as you rebuild your pure heart and your sense of self, you're not so disturbed by that. It's a part of life. And you actually, my understanding is, when you have self-love, you can really project that for everybody. But when you lack love, you will sometimes be in this like-dislike game. So when someone's like that, they're fluctuating in their own self-respect too. And it's not to be even judgmental, but it's the journey of life.
Do you get what he's saying? Does that make sense? This lack of self-love, right? Anyone have a question for Charlie?
I hope they're easier than Judy's questions.
All right, good. Kinder question.
Hello. My name is Patrick,
Hi,
and
Patrick.
I really enjoyed the opening of this program with the music and Brother Paul's song, I Am Light. And I really think that I just wanted to, suggest that everything that Brother Charlie is talking about is about being a being of light.
That's right.
That not being attached to the impermanence, that there's an eternal part of us, and to tap into that.
That's nice, yeah.
So I just wanted to thank you for connecting those ideas to the idea of a power above us or beyond us on this impermanent plane.
That's
Thank you.
beautiful, Patrick. Anyone else?
Om Shanti, Brother Charlie. My question is, let's say you have that, you want to, or you are developing that connection with God, right? And you have those meditation conversations with God and everything. But you have people in your life, those who are non-believers, right? They are not as, even if you try to have conversations with them or try to draw them in, they are non-believers. How do you continue the quest of not getting discouraged by the because in that environment, when you see the positive aspects of this connection and all of that, people around you who you love, who you want them to benefit from this, but nothing you say or do, or even with it's not changing them. How do you not get discouraged, or what do you do to continue being encouraged and drawing them in? I hope I was able to explain my question.
Yeah. I think one of the great lessons of life for me is we are all different. We're all unique. And I feel one of the great wisdoms, to be able to accept people as they are. We are different. Even in my own family, our own families, people will think differently. And it's a gift to allow them, because we want them to think like me. And even though I've taken so much benefit, they're different. And I often feel personally that when I fully accept who I am, I can fully accept others as they are. And it's just life. We are different. And I think, have you ever known, sometimes we think we see a scene and everyone sees it like me. But each one of us, our perception of reality is so different. And this is one of the most important experiences. Even someone you may be married to, or a child that close, may have a completely different perception of reality than me. But the only way that if I want to, from my true heart, to help them, which I believe is to be the example, especially to people in your family, because I don't think any of us like someone to sort of, I don't know whether the word is the right word, preach to us. Because sometimes we do experience benefit, and so out of love, sometimes we sound a bit like a preacher. I know for me personally, that used to turn me off. And it's just your example, the way people change. There's a lady I know in Australia, a lovely, lovely person. She has 3 daughters. And one of her daughters lived with her for 20 years, and just overnight she began to practice meditation. And I asked her why. She said, just seeing Mum, the change in my mum over so long, and how Mum became what she'd been through in her life and how strong she became, inspired me. So it's the power of your own life which is the greatest message, and that's the gift you can give to them. But don't you find that in your own family, how different are sometimes your siblings, your cousins? It's incredible, really, because when we really understand each soul is born, and each soul has its own story. And I often say to parents, because I remember meeting one family in Australia, they had 4 children. 3 of them were those incredible high achiever types. The sky was the limit. And they were lovely people, but one of them was just such a struggle right from day one. And the parents blame themselves. But we know that there's 2 influences on the soul. One is the family, that's a big influence. But even stronger can be the karmic story, the story of the past the soul is bringing. And sometimes no matter how loving and good a family is, the karmic story is stronger, that love can't penetrate. And then the parents blame themselves and think, what have we done? But actually, sometimes I think when spirituality goes deep, it gives us a context to understand why so many things happen, especially in our relationships.
So what should those parents do with that one that is struggling?
Keep loving. What else can you do? But not to blame themselves, because often they will feel, what have we done?
Right.
What have we done that this child is not a happy child,
Right.
not a fulfilled child? And I think because a lot of families feel like that, you know, and
And
feel...
you're saying don't give up on them. That's also part of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Be
And, you
patient,
know,
don't
as a
give up.
parent, you hold their value and you can, and people come through it. Some just go through these really dark periods and it can take years, but they come out the other end of it if we invest value in our attitude. You know, rather than telling them all the time how to be, what to do, just hold their value in your attitude, and that gift can often pull someone out of a dark place.
And don't give up on ourselves, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes we can get very discouraged with ourselves. Say, gosh, I've been at this so long. I can't believe I just, whatever, fill in the blank, right? Lost my temper, said that, whatever. But never, right? Never give up. So, anyone else have something you really would like Charlie to speak about? Yes? Right here? Bringing you a mic.
Hello. I have a question. You said earlier about remembering, little things here and there, and it makes you sad. It probably ruins your day. Sometimes it ruins my whole week, and I start to spiral. But other days, I tend to just let the emotion take over for a little bit, and then I get back on my feet. But once I get back on my feet, I feel better for, could be a week, 2 weeks, or a month or two. But all it takes is that one memory or one thought to come back down. And sometimes I wonder, during that time I was getting better, was I pretending that I was getting better?
Yeah.
So I was wondering if there's any suggestions or your thoughts.
You know, sometimes for me, I think if I'm not happy, there's one question to ask: what did I remember? What am I remembering? Because we all know there's certain memories of mistakes perhaps I've made or things that happened in my life that will take me into a very unpleasant place. But I can't stop myself going there, even though I know it's going to make me very miserable and unhappy. The whole idea of spirituality is to get the internal willpower, not to keep letting myself go down these rabbit holes of unhappiness. And then when you're down there, the gloomy outlook on life is pretty unhappy, feel very down, very depressed. Of course it takes practice, but can I suggest that if you really do a meditation course, and just don't do a meditation course, but practice properly for a few months, literally. And when your mind starts to go down those places, remember who you are and remember the divine. And at first it may not have that much power, but as you practice, it'll give you more and more strength. And you will go into those places, but not as heavily as before. So slowly, 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 you're getting your internal strength back, not to keep going into these dark places that take me a long time to come out of. That's why they call it a spiritual path, because it's a journey of self-learning. But if it's not just enough to come to a talk and listen to a few ideas, the real benefit is practicing on a daily basis. And this is really what this is about. And I often say, you can approach it as a hobby, come to a nice talk, lovely vibe, go home, and I'm just the same. You can approach it like a discipline where you meditate regularly, but when you stop meditating, you keep reverting to your old patterns, your old thinking. Or you can do it like a lifestyle where you actually put a structure into your day to practice, observing what you connect to. And when you connect to those places will make you unhappy, you pull back quicker. It will take time, but you pull back quicker, pull back, to the point that you feel you've taken back your sense of authority. It does take time. Where's the power? The power's in the connection with God. It's incredible, that power. And I think you all know the 12-step program, people who've been addicted for years. The 11th step, I think, is conscious contact with God. There's no greater way to empower yourself to overcome habitual mental and emotional patterns. But it's sticking with it over a period of time. It's keeping practicing, and you'll get there.
It's a kind of mastery, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can control what's in your mind. Okay, now we have some questions, and I just want to say that we're supposed to, are you here to have your Rocky bracelet tied? Yeah? All right, so we'll take 2 quick questions, and then we need to move to Rocky.
I apologize, I came in late, but I am familiar with your form of meditation. My question is there only one form of meditation? The reason why I ask you that is that when I was in India, I was very privileged to hear the Dalai Lama talk for 2 hours on the negativity of the mind and how it destroys many things, including it can destroy the world. And I do my own form of transcendental meditation where when I close my eyes and I have a mantra, I am able to watch my mind as if it was a movie going on, and I watch it go to the negative places, and I then am able to stand back and say, oh, look at that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm able to have a perspective on it. Mm-hmm. But do you, in your opinion, is there only one form of meditation, or would you suggest something else?
Definitely not. I've tried so many forms myself. And this is a little bit like I was saying before, we are all different. And what suits one doesn't suit another. For me, on my travels, I did all sorts of Buddhist meditations and Christian meditations and all sorts of things, but I landed here and it suited me as a person. But I feel, if it suits you, well and good, but if something else suits you, well and good too. And have full respect for, all traditions in that way. So just keep doing what works for you. But I think it's good to be open to try new things. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to propose that we shift gears here and move to Rocky. Do you all, I think you're going to have someone explain to you what Rocky is, right? I'm going to invite whomever is going to do that. Is that you, Kanu? Yeah? All right. Well, first, let me just say that this closes this part of the talk. Thank you, Brother Charlie.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. The rest will be a lot of fun.
Thank you, Sister Judy and Brother Charlie. So I think, Brother Charlie, you can continue to sit here. They'll just move. You're part of the Rakhi tying ceremony. Okay. So a very special conversation. I'm sure there are many insights which we will want to take with us and think about them more. So thank you, all of you, for your questions too. And I'm going to now invite Sister Kala Iyengar, who is the director of Peace Village. And she has taken on this magnanimous job of taking care and coordinating the activities of Peace Village. And also she's part of the trust that takes care of the activities of the Brahma Kumaris in the United States of America. So she's going to explain in a moment what we are going to do in this ceremony of Rakhi tying. But just for you to be aware that we would request you to stay in silence for the whole time. It may take 45 minutes to an hour for us to do this for everyone. We'll tie a bracelet and you'll receive some gift as well along with the tying. And it's a very sacred ceremony, so the silence, meditative state would help all of us to experience the sacredness and the divinity that is associated with this ceremony. So after you, all of you will come one by one. Maybe we can start from the front, this row, and the guests and visitors are invited to come first. Those who are going to, who just came for this program, they can come first and come from this side, right? And then get the Rakhi tied by Sister Kala, the bracelet, and then Charlie Bhai will give you a small toli and blessing and some gift with it. And we would request you to leave your shoes where you're sitting so that you can, when you go back, you can wear them again. And of course, Sister Kala will explain to us more about the ceremony. While they are setting up, maybe about what's happening in Peace Village in the next few months. So Sister Judy mentioned in the beginning of the interview that this is a very special year for us. We are completing 25 years. We started our operations in 1999, and we would like to really invite you to come for the day celebration. It's a fair that we are going to have on the 7th of September, the weekend after the Labor Day weekend. So 7th of September is a Saturday, and please do come.